So you probably don't own a Motorola phone. In fact, you may have never owned a Motorola phone. But in 91, they created the first cell phone, and by the mid 90s, they had 50% of the market share for cell phones. Um, they hung on in the mid 2000s, but by 2009, they had a 6% market share. They were almost finished. Their company got spun off from Motorola. The cell phone division was spun off to its own company. Google bought them, and then a Chinese company bought them, discontinued the phones for a while, and I think just recently have tried to bring them back, but with little success. So what happened? How did they go from dominating the market to complete irrelevance? Well, most analysts say it was stubborn, prideful foolishness that did them in. You see, they came up with this cell phone in 1996 called the StarTAC, and it was supposed to be the technological marvel. They were so full of themselves concerning this phone that they were putting unrealistic demands on the carriers, and as a result, many of them, it rubbed them the wrong way, and they didn't appreciate what Motorola was doing. But in addition to that, Motorola looked backwards instead of forwards in one key area. It was that they were making an analog phone just as cell phones were switching to digital. Now, here was the bottom line. They were stubborn about this, and they hung on to this design for this phone. They hung on to the analog and expected the whole market to bend to them. They thought they couldn't lose. They were so full of themselves that they refused to change. Well, that's stubborn pride, and it's foolish. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of the fool is right in his own eyes." For the fool, this is a pattern, though. Proverbs 27:22 says, "If you put a fool in a bowl and you ground him up just like you did grain, all you would get is ground fool." The fool will have learned nothing from that whole process. Why? Because he's absolutely convinced in his own mind that he knows what he's doing, that he is the one who can figure everything out. In the worst way, he is a self-made man. He only has his own resources with which to draw from because he doesn't listen to anybody else. Well, Proverbs 131 says that a fool will eat the fruit of his own way. In other words, all the things that he does and only relying on himself are going to come back on him. He is the self-made man, but that self-made man is so limited. Let's be honest though. There's a little stubborn fool in us all. We all want to be right. We all just want to rely on what we know, how we know it, when we know it, and we would prefer not to listen to anybody else. We have an echo chamber in our mind where we think about our own ideas, and we find other people just line up with what we want to already believe and all our biases. And the thing is that we never learn when we behave this way, when we behave in stubbornness and hold on to the same thing through pride and through that kind of foolishness. So as you think about this, about being wise, as you think about that, remember that you can't be right all the time and be wise. You're going to have to take some hits and realize some of the things that you think are wrong, and you have to be willing to change those things, because stubbornness is foolishness. And the next time you're tempted to say, "Oh, I'm right, I know what I'm doing, I don't need anybody else's input," just think about Motorola and ask yourself, do you really know it all? Do you really have everything figured out?